TED is a nonprofit devoted to ideas worth spreading. To me, it's more than just hearing of one's successes and learning of one's experiences. As a speaker, I think a successful TED Talk is one that not only engages individuals to talk and think about ideas learned during a speech, but also motivates and inspires people to roll up their sleeves and be committed to making tangible impacts locally, nationally, or globally. My goal for today is hopefully to accomplish both. So this is the story of my growth as an individual, from a young, innocent observer of cultures to a passive participator of philanthropy to ultimately an active leader of social entrepreneurship. I've lived in Princeton for the majority of my life, which is weird because I grew up in Mexico, consequently moving to Miami, Boston, and New York throughout my childhood. And the truth is that here in Princeton, I've been fortunate enough to live in a very privileged society, just like many of us. During my freshman year, when my Spanish teacher, Mrs. Hayden, announced that she had planned a trip to Peru for our class in the summer, I was naive to believe that the only impact would be some pictures in front of the legendary Machu Picchu ruins and some practical improvements in my language skills. And this is where it all began, young and bystander zone. Following our 9-day tour of Peru, 5 of my classmates and I traveled 1 hour north of Cusco to the town of Terai. Terai is located in the high up in the Incan Mountains in the Sacred Valley of the Incas. In 2009, the entire town was destroyed by a mudslide, wiping away all resources of education, trade, and health centers. Here we can see the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times highlighted that tourists were stranded in this area but neglected the indigenous population, which was completely decimated. Upon visiting the mudslide inundated village of Terai, I was exposed to Peru that I had not envisioned. Seeing the damage that heavy rains had done to Terai and hearing stories of how people were buried alive really helped and was critical to my development as an individual. But these weren't the only experiences which triggered my gradual change. Following my influential summer trip to Peru, I vowed that I would start the Princeton Peru Partnership, a student-run club at Princeton High School, to raise both funds and awareness for this region. The mission was to empower kids in the Sacred Valley to become future leaders of this area through cultural preservation and access to education. The first year's objective was simple. It was to raise enough funds to rebuild the school library and to build teachers' houses to promote community building. I'm not going to lie, as a new organization, we'll quickly learn it was a very rocky start. My biggest problem was motivating students to support a cause that was foreign and strange to them when they were local charities that close to home that they could relate to. I solved this problem by doing 2 things. First, by presenting this cause to my students, to my peers, because if they didn't see the region in pictures and they didn't see who they were helping, then they would never be motivated to join. Second, I developed a feeling of ownership in students in terms of fundraising. If they were in charge of specific fundraising events, then they would be more inclined to work towards our ultimate goal. I recruited 10 students and we were off. In our first year, through car washes, bake sales, a silent auction, and several locally leader-held dinners, we raised an astounding $15,000. At this point in my journey, I was a passive participant. I was 3,000 miles away from Peru, and I thought that we were raising money for a cause that was both deserving and very worthy of our efforts. I learned values that, like team synergy within a group, is paramount, and that communication, not just to each other, but to donors, is even more important. It was exhilarating, knowing that our work that we did had achieved our goal. This is the development of the teachers' quarters and the school library that we built over a couple of slides. Here we see a group of local workers making bricks out of adobe mud. And this is about a year after I had originally gone to Peru. Over a couple of months, 4,000 adobe bricks were put together, and here we have a beautiful final product of teachers' quarters. By this time, we had begun to gain some credibility and traction within the local community. In a span of a couple of months, 5 of Princeton's local newspapers, from the Princeton Packet to the Town Topics, had commended a group of high school students who were making an impact with philanthropic efforts. A year later, 2012, I returned to the Peruvian highlands with my father. While in Cusco, we met a native New Jerseyan named Alex Ball. Alex had told my dad and I of his own NGO, which he started, called the Sacred Valley Project. We quickly found out that Terai was not the only village that had gotten lost off the beaten path. Indigenous Quechua girls living in isolated mountain villages needed to walk on average 8 hours a day to and from Ollantaytambo to receive an education, inspiring our next fundraising campaign, building them a dormitory. This was the year that things were really starting to pick up. Being clear as a community service group at our school, our tight-knit group of 10 students expanded to 26. Having revitalized our members, I motivated the troops in hopes of surpassing our previous year's efforts. While we continued with our traditional fundraising efforts, we also diversified our efforts in order to hopefully expand far beyond the Princeton High School community. We were able to win the national community service competition called Power of a School, selected out of 32 finalists, bringing us national recognition and a $1,000 prize. We expanded to local elementary schools, such as Johnson Park and the Princeton Charter School. And I was thrilled that Princeton Peru Partnership was building bridges in the local community. Additionally, we were endorsed by a local nonprofit organization headed by the Princeton local Lydia Usami, the Kids for Kids Foundation, through music. And we were able to have several benefit concerts in which all the funds raised were donated to Princeton Peru Partnership. Furthermore, we were awarded by President Barack Obama with a National Gold Medal of Service. These are some pictures of expansion to schools. And we were awarded by President Obama with a National Gold Medal of Service for our dedication to our international community. But what really was the best form of recognition in my mind came from a response from a very lengthy and winded, long email I sent to the Peruvian embassy in Washington, asking if some of our members could meet with the Peruvian ambassador to discuss possible solutions and ways that the Peruvian embassy could help us. Ambassador Forsyth was thrilled to meet us, and he has promised a fundraising event this upcoming September in Washington, D.C. in the form of a piano benefit concert with a world-renowned Peruvian pianist, Priscilla Navarro. At the end of the school year, the Princeton Peru Partnership managed to raise a little over $22,000, and this surpassed our previous total. To me, this recognition was gratifying, as I was witnessing all of our hard work and effort over the past 2 years come to fruition. This past summer was an important one for the Sacred Valley Project and Princeton Peru Partnership. This was the summer that the girls' dormitory was being built with the funds that Princeton Peru Partnership had raised. And for this reason, I decided to spend a month in Peru, transforming from a passive participant to an active leader and working on the ground. I decided to spend a month in Ollantaytambo managing construction and international volunteer groups who came and volunteered their time to help with the construction process. In hindsight, this month in Ollantaytambo may have been one of the best experiences of my life. Under the leadership of Joe Levitan, one of the founders of the project, I quickly learned what it was like to not follow a clearly drawn-out plan. I found myself at the front lines of a booming organization where at any moment things could go wrong. I learned simple lessons such as following your gut feeling when things don't go as planned, and maintaining and cultivating relationships because they could end up saving you. This is one of my favorite slides because it shows the original piece of plot of land and the expected designed dormitory which will be able to be constructed. One of the most gratifying experiences I had was being able to walk up to the communities with some of the girls over the weekend. So what happens is these girls go to school in Ollantaytambo in the girls' dormitory and return to their communities 8 hours away, 4 to 8 hours away, walking distance. And I was able to walk with them We walked over train tracks, lumber bridges, and up very steep mountains. This is in the community of Anapawa, and once we got up there after a 6-hour voyage, we were rewarded with a sacrificial goat, and it was a very hearty meal. This is the community of Sokma, and you can see in the mountains there are small jagged paths, and these paths have been in the mountains since the Incan times, where communities are located that no one has heard of and no one knows, off the grid. So this is Noemi, and it's very dark, but this was at 5 o'clock in the morning. On a Monday morning, we all woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning, got ready, and at 4:30 in the morning, we left her community to hike down the mountain and get to school. Just like, this is actually a video that I took. Hopefully it'll... No, okay, so just briefly, that was a video of me walking down the mountain at about 6 o'clock in the morning, and me describing what we had done the day before. We had shot a small documentary of a day in the life of a girl. Yeah. And this is local shaman Vidal, who is having a ceremony, a traditional ceremony of a pago, or laying the first stone for our construction process. Just like individuals, all cultures have their idiosyncrasies in their business contexts. Fundraising in the US and building our project in the Peruvian highlands required a balance of different skill sets, a deeper understanding of the local communities, and a versatility to adapt. In the US, I had to convince people of the necessity to assist communities thousands of miles away. In Peru, however, our challenges were centered around practical execution considerations, from determining the dimensions of adobe bricks to vigorously negotiating the cost of materials. So these are some live construction sites about a couple of weeks ago, where the inauguration will be later in February, and the first floor of the girls' dormitory will be completed. We're starting our third year of running, and this year we're expanding, we're bringing in a third project. We've been chosen by We Share Solar. We Share Solar is a non-profit organization which creates solar suitcases to provide electricity to rural communities. And we've been chosen by We Share Solar to expand to Peru as the first organization in Peru, let alone South America. We Share Solar provides solar suitcases to over 20 countries. And this is a national conference actually at Princeton University, where we successfully, after a couple of days, 2 days of learning the solar technology and about 5 hours of construction, we successfully built a solar suitcase. And as you can see, we're very excited, and proof of concept is that we were able to light a bulb. This is the inventor of the solar suitcase, Hal Aronson, a professor at Berkeley. As I head out to Penn next year, I've already trained the next generation of students who will lead Princeton Peru Partnership under my supervision. While at Penn, I plan to expand Princeton Peru Partnership to its Ivy League counterpart, Penn Peru Partnership. In recognition of my mentors in Princeton Peru Partnership, I aim to develop, in theory and practice, our respective experiences in dealing with universal social challenges, such as gender equality and an insufficient access to education, all under the umbrella, of course, of social entrepreneurship. Thank you.